What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Radpack podcast. I'm your host, Garrett from Born to be Rad, a.k.a. the G-rated superstar, a.k.a. the Rad Influence.
And I'm Mel from My Killer Podcast, a.k.a. the Rad Hatter, a.k.a. Convicted Melon.
And I'm your host, Justin from Movie Watch Daily, a.k.a. the Dead Couch, a.k.a. the Passion of the Pack. And we are the Radpack.
So the last time you saw us, we did a call-in episode, a really fun episode. People called in with their questions. It was part 2 of that series. And man, I loved it because we got a lot of new people calling in, a lot of other creators asking us questions. Did you guys, those are always fun, right?
I love them. They're my favorite, actually.
Yeah, they're fun. We had a bunch of great video submissions. So it's always good to put a name to the face or a face to the name. For the people who come in and join in the chat. So I love those Ask Us Anything episodes. I'm sure we'll do more. We got a bunch of really good questions. So definitely check out that last episode. It was a lot of fun, but we have something pretty special tonight as well, guys. Isn't that right?
Yeah, tonight we're going to be talking about 1990s. It's a family comedy, Problem Child. I'm sure everybody out there remembers this one, which to me is a great one. It's something I've always loved growing up. What did you guys think about Problem Child growing up?
This was a staple of my childhood. This is one of those movies that just constantly played on repeat on like USA. I remember it playing on USA a lot, but on cable and all that stuff. And I remember just watching over and over back in the day. And my parents hated it for some reason. I always remember.
Oh my God, my mom hated this movie too for some reason.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, that's hilarious.
I think it's because one of those movies where every time it was on, you had to watch it. So I swear, like for whatever period of time when that movie came out, if I was watching TV, that stupid movie was on, and my parents would be like, you're watching that stupid movie again," because it is so silly.
Yeah, I think maybe for the parents too, it's a little too real because they kind of like live that life with their children. They're like, you're terrible children and you're learning these bad things from this movie.
Yeah, that is true, because as a kid, you're kind of putting yourself in the shoes, because I think we're all pretty close to this. I'm pretty much close to the exact same age as the kid.
Yeah.
And as he was in the movie. So I'm watching it from the kid's perspective, like, man, I want to raise hell like Junior and do all this shit. And,
that's why it's questionable if this was a family comedy, because some of the things that happen in this movie don't seem so
Oh my God, yeah. And that's something we're definitely going to dive into that, because a lot of the humor, many of the jokes are just not family friendly at all. It's kind of billed as a family comedy or a kids movie, but looking back, I mean, there's a kid in it. There's kids in it. But I would not call this this isn't a movie you'd sit and watch with your kids. There's so many off-color jokes.
Anyway.
Oh, hell no. I'd have to say this wouldn't be rated R, but I think it would definitely be slapped with a PG-13, and may even have some jokes that may even have been a little sketchy even for a PG-13 by today's standards. But I love this movie growing up. I think that's probably the appeal when I was a kid, because it was billed as a PG-13 kids movies, but there's a lot of dirty stuff in it. There's a lot of, nasty sight gags and crazy lines and crazy jokes. It's just a wacky movie, man.
You seem like you would have been a junior when you were younger.
I was kind of a junior. I was kind of a junior. I really was. I was kind of a hell-raising kid, not to the degree that Junior was doing all the crazy shit he does. But this movie was a blast growing up, and I always love rewatching this movie.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's always been one of my favorites, and I feel that for whatever reason, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I almost feel like this kind of gets forgotten about a little bit between other 90s comedies and stuff, but this was a big one for me too. And one of the reasons I think we wanted to really talk about this now is we've been talking about this movie for quite a while, but now just felt like the right time because Mill Creek just released a new Blu-ray, and I know a lot of people are excited about it because it comes with the old retro VHS slipcover. People really digging that look. And I know that a lot of people are going to be picking this one up, and either they're going to be watching it for the first time in many years, or I'm sure some of the collectors out there may have never seen this movie, and this might be the first introduction to this movie that they have. So I think this is just a perfect timing to get this done, because then maybe people can come in and be like, let's see what they thought about it. Because even when it comes to ages, like I saw this in the theaters as a kid. And obviously being as young as I was, like you said, we were around the same age as Junior was in this. And my parents had to have brought me to the movies, and they thought they were going to see a family comedy with a kid, and I don't remember if they ever like didn't like it, but looking at it now, I'm surprised that they were fine with me being there, because my parents were pretty strict. Well, I'm going to say that my mother was pretty strict when it came to specific things. Like, she was really big on like if CDs had explicit tags on it and all that stuff. Like, she was really big on like that kind of stuff. My dad didn't care either way, but for some reason I feel like movies like that, we couldn't watch a lot of rated R movies and stuff unless they were on TV.
Same.
But I don't remember her ever getting upset about this, and I think it must have just been because the rating, like it must have been rated PG, I think, at the time.
It's PG, yeah.
So I think that might have just been like, well, I guess it's fine then. And like you said, I wouldn't show my son this, not anytime soon, right? Like I just wouldn't, because I actually watched it and like a part of me was looking at it and I was like, he could be like this, like to some extent. Like, he kind of reminds me of this in ways. Like, he's not a terror, but like some of the sarcastic stuff he did and just to kind of push people's buttons, I'm kind of like, yeah, I could see that. And I would never show him that, because like you said, a kid that age or younger looks at him and is like, I'm going to do that stuff too.
It's basically like it's basically a kid's version of the Bad Seed or like Damien or something. I mean, this kid is, the things that he does in this movie he's so relentlessly cruel and like just chaotic. It just never ends. Like, and he's Junior as a character. He's like, when I was watching this movie, there's only one like redeemable character in the entire movie, and that's John Ritter's character. Everybody else, even the adults, are just scumbags. Like, John Ritter's wife's a complete bitch. The grandpa, like John Ritter's dad, is just an unbelievable prick. All of the other kids are little shits, and the other kids' parents are little shits. You got Gilbert Gottfried just doing his thing. It seemed like a lot of his stuff was improvised. The subject
nuns.
matter. Yeah, the nuns were. Yeah, they were terrible.
In their defense, though, they had to deal with Junior, so they probably were cool people. But then,
not the one with the thing on her head. She was. I didn't like her at all. I wasn't a fan.
You had nightmares about that thing on her head for years.
It was gnarly. I kept waiting for like to move, like in different spots or something. Like
it was like a hairy mole. Did anybody look it up to see if it was real?
Oh, no, I didn't look it up. It was hairy, all right. That Blu-ray really shows.
Yeah, it was some HD
hair, yeah.
Yikes.
But yeah, it was one that really, it really stuck with me, and it's had quite a bit of releases. Not any for a while, and like I said, I have some here. So right now I still have the VHS tape of this, and it's actually in really good condition. Because again, it was one of my favorites, and I can remember a story with this. Not only did I see it in the theater, but for some reason it really sticks in my brain. Is I can remember going to my friend Randy's house when we were probably in elementary school. It was like a birthday sleepover, and we were so excited because it was like, all the kids from school were like going to this kid's house and sleeping over, and I think we got pizza and stuff, and we rented Problem Child, and we all watched it in the living room as like Problem Child pizza.
No, what? Oh, I thought you said my bad.
What did I say?
You
said pizza.
Oh, pizza? No. Pizza. No.
Pizza.
But we got this, and I can remember watching it. What, pizza?
The R's you put on at the end of all your words.
Do I? What is this, a Northeast thing? What's going on here?
Be, yeah.
Must be.
Jeez, man. Rough crowd over here. But yeah. I can remember watching this, and I can remember going to bed, and like we all did, like I remember we broke out like Mad magazines and stuff like that, and we were like going through them, and then we did like, remember Mad Libs? Remember those books?
Oh yeah.
I can still remember doing all that, and then like this kid Ron like fell asleep, and everybody was like messing with him and stuff. Like, we were all like little kids, but for some reason that stuck in my head, and this is what we rented. And it's just one of those movies that I always liked. So I got, it had this. I've got the second one here, which we could talk about a little bit later. And then it does have a Blu-ray, and I know, Justin, you said you have it as well, which is cool because it has the original artwork on it, which I think is really, really cool. No features on this thing, though, so that's why I'm really curious about the new one that's coming out, if it has anything different. And then they have the second one.
The second one's on Blu-ray too?
Yeah. So these were easy to get because these were Best Buy exclusives. Remember when they used to do like a limited thing where they would bring out, like, I think The Burbs might have been on that Best Buy exclusive list for a while before Shout Factory got it. They would put out like a couple Blu-rays that only they had, and it was like a couple different titles. I think like Last House on the Left was one, The Burbs, Problem Child, and then Problem Child 2, and then they kind of shut that vault, and then eventually other companies like brought them back out. But that's where that Blu-ray came from. And then they have the new one from Mill Creek, and I don't know. Yeah, we don't have it yet. So I know, Mel, I know you ordered it.
I did order it. It was supposed to be here today. It didn't come. I tried to look up any of the stats or anything online. I couldn't find anything. Even Mill Creek doesn't list any special features or anything on their website. So I don't know if it's the same thing with the groovy slip cover or what.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait to see what yours looks like. If it has some deleted scenes, I'll pick that up because the slip cover is cool. And I would love some deleted scenes or something. And
I'll let you guys know when I get it.
Yeah, and I need to pick up Problem Child 2. For some reason, that seems like a title that's going to go out of print and never be available again.
Yeah, I need to get Problem Child 2 as well now that I know after watching
it's kind of high.
today.
I looked at it today and it was $20 and I was like, God, it was like $19.99. I was like, ugh.
You're probably right. To be honest, I thought it was already out of print because, like I said,
I was shocked to see it on Amazon.
Those came out for like a Best Buy thing for a short window. I thought maybe it was only part one, but
was it Amazon new or was it like a third party?
Prime. Yeah. So I'm gonna.
Did it say one left?
I don't know.
you guys are gonna fight for it.
We're gonna race to order.
I gotta have two, and if it goes out of print, I'm definitely not going to shell out like $60 for it. So I might as well just suck it up and get it now because I actually didn't get a chance. I know you guys both rewatched the second one. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit later, but I didn't have a chance to watch the second one, so I want to hear your guys' thoughts on that one as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm almost positive Mill Creek will probably do part two. I would think.
Yeah,
because like these two are by the same company and it's nice because they each have the original artwork. They really go well together as far as matching. So
they should have just done a double feature.
I know.
VHS Blu-ray with both of them and just knocked it out.
I wish they would have like a little box set or whatever.
Yeah, that would have
been two on one. Yeah, that would have been really cool. But yeah, that's kind of my memories with it. Saw it in the theaters. It was on TV a lot. Rented it at my friend Randy's sleepover. And how about you guys? Do you have any like specific memories of this movie growing up, like when you saw it for the first time or anything like that?
I don't remember seeing it for the first time. I just remember it was one of those movies, man, that they played incessantly because all of us kids were just crazy about it. I think I remember this being on USA a lot. So I always caught it there. And of course it was all chopped up. And I actually was talking to somebody today about some things were edited, which we can talk about, especially some of the lines. But I just remember watching it over and over. I don't remember the first time I saw it. I didn't see it in the theaters, but I just remember annoying my parents with it constantly. What about you, Mel? Did you see it in the theater? Or
I didn't see it in the theater. I don't remember the first time I saw it either. I just remember me and my brother used to watch both of them pretty consistently, mostly the second one though. So that's mostly where my memories reside of these movies.
It's and you're right, Justin. It does have deleted scenes, so let's hope that it's on there because this one doesn't have it on at all. And I'm not sure. I have the DVD. It was like a box. It was a 2-pack. It's like part 1 and 2. And I don't know if it had the deleted scenes on that or not. I was looking for it before we went live, but I could not find it. But yeah, I'm hoping that maybe it does, and that might be just enough for me to get it because I haven't seen those deleted scenes, which I think may have been put into the movie for television because they had to take some things out. So I think that's the story with a lot of those deleted scenes it was part of the TV cut. And I used to love when they do that with movies where they'd add additional scenes in.
Because I doubt that happens too often that they actually have to cut kids movies for content. You know what I mean? Like an edited kids movie. You know,
they'd have to edit this one today.
Yeah, for sure.
If they wanted to do it. But yeah, I always remember watching the TV movies when I was a kid, and I'd be like, "What? That scene wasn't in the movie. That scene wasn't in the movie."
Well, what was funny is from my end, like I said, a lot of these movies, especially the R-rated ones, I saw on TV first. So when I saw them, in real time, like when I got the physical media when I was older, I was like, where's this? Where's that? Or I didn't know this scene or I didn't know that because I was so used to the television cuts on a lot of these. And, even Halloween, especially the first time I saw that one was on TV. So going back and watching it again, I was like, where's this scene? Where's that scene? And it was, and Teen Wolf, I think we might've talked about this on our Teen Wolf episode that we did is, the scene of him in the dressing room with Pamela, that was not on the version I had as a kid because I had a TV version. So that scene was completely cut. So and the scene that was cut was when he was in the garage sniffing for the stuff with Styles. That scene was not in the TV cut at all. So those two scenes were brand new to me when I finally, saw this thing as an adult. So it is interesting that they used to do stuff like that. But, getting back into this movie, I think, and you guys, I don't know if you agree with me or not, I think the problem with Problem Child is I think it's such a great movie of that time for kids, but I think what happened was Home Alone outshined this, and I think it really got buried because they came out the same year. This was earlier in the year, I think, and then Home Alone came out after this. So I think it really, caused this thing to kind of lose some steam with
this was a summer movie. It came out in July, and then Home Alone, it just... There was also a lot of stuff that came out that same month too. When we talk about box office stuff, there was a lot of competition for this movie.
So let's talk about that now because I think this did pretty well.
It did.
In the theaters.
It did well.
Yeah.
So this movie was released July 27th, 1990. It's from Universal Pictures. Domestically, this movie made $53 million. Like, that's crazy. Another 20 international. So worldwide, this thing took in $72 million on a $10 million budget, which is crazy.
Wow. That is crazy.
Critics hated it, but kids loved it. So, the word of mouth was good because, when we were young, seeing a movie like this, you'd tell your friends like, oh, you got to see this movie. So the word of mouth was really good on it. Other movies that came out about the same time. I mean, we had tons of movies that came out about the same time as class. I feel like every time we go into the box office for one of these older movies, whether it's like an 80s or 90s movies, you go back and look, and it was just 10, 15 classics every month back in the day. July of 1990, we had Die Hard 2, Ghost, Dick Tracy, Arachnophobia, RoboCop 2, Pretty Woman, Back to the Future 3. Back to the Future 3 and Home Alone do have a small connection to this. So we'll get into that when we do our fun facts.
And the thing with this too, it kind of has an all-star cast as well in this movie. And it's so nice to see John Ritter. Like, you forget how good he really was.
He's the heart and soul of this movie.
I know. He was like tugging at my heartstrings through this whole thing.
So many times. And I think that's what's kind of makes this movie work. Because if it was just like a bunch of nonsense the whole time, it would get a little like monotonous. But John Ritter really reins this thing in, and he just does not give up on this crazy kid. I guess we haven't really told the story, but John Ritter and his wife are a married couple. She's this like super materialistic, like not very great lady who's only interested in like money and status, and she's unable to have kids. So he finally convinces her to adopt a kid. And of course, Junior has been passed along. I think they said he had been returned 30 times from other foster
Just that
parents.
opening scene of like them dropping off a baby, and then next they drop off like a 1-year-old, and then next like a 3-year-old, and you're like, oh my, like by the time the basket at the end, his like arms and legs are
Apparently my birth is not considered a blessed event.
So that brings up something interesting that I'll talk a little bit about the writers and the directors of this movie, because like you said, even from the opening scene with the voiceover and the storytelling, this is not a movie that was like thrown together. There's a lot of love put into this movie. It's written really well. The script is good, as silly as it is. It flows really well. The pacing is great. There's really like nothing. There's no wasted moment on screen. Like every single moment of this movie has some sort of one-liner or a sight gag or a joke. Like every moment is filled with something. And when I dove into like who made this movie, the writers and directors, there's a lot of like pedigree to this thing. This was directed by Dennis Dugan. I think that's how you say his name. He's an actor you've seen in a lot of stuff. And he also directed Happy Gilmore, Beverly Hills Ninja, Big Daddy, Saving Silverman, Chuck and Larry. He did all the Adam Sandler stuff. He even did Jack and Jill. And you would definitely recognize him. He was the dad in Can't Buy Me Love and the dad in Pippi Longstocking. So I was surprised to see his face. This was written by Scott Alexander and Larry Karadusky, and these guys have written a lot of really cool stuff. So it's a writing team. These two writers, I'll just rattle off a few of their credits. 1408. They also wrote Agent Cody Banks. Mel, I can see you as an Agent Cody Banks fan back in the day. Man on the Moon, That Darn Cat. Remember that silly movie?
I remember That Darn Cat.
That movie. They wrote Ed Wood. They wrote People versus Larry Flint, as well as they also wrote episodes of Monsters and Tales from the Crypt. So
they were kind of all over the place.
Yeah, they wrote all kinds. Yeah, for sure. So we have a director that's really talented. We have some talented writers, and what I notice is just it really shows through in the writing. There's a lot of care put into the characters. Even as shitty as Junior is, there's some scenes where you see like why he has the motivations he does, you know, because they just kept giving him back. So he's like, if everybody's just going to keep giving me back, I'm just going to make everybody's life a living hell because I'm just going to end up with these damn hairy mole nuns, you know, until John Ritter comes in, and he's just such a sweetheart to the kid, and he doesn't give up on him. And I found myself actually getting surprisingly emotional like multiple times during this movie.
Me too.
I'm like, oh my God, he's such a nice dude.
Yeah, I kind of found myself as well, because now we're looking at it from a different lens than we did as a kid. As we're a kid, we're looking at it from the kid's point of view, and now we're looking at it more from the adult's point of view. And there was, you know, as much as this was this kind of comedy with all this crazy and wacky stuff going on, and Junior was just raising hell and stuff, like there are a lot of, you know, moments like that where you kind of do feel like it's a family film. Like that one moment that I think of right off the bat is when he kind of first got to the house and John Ritter's got him at night, and he's like, I think they were like sharing, like, what were they? They were drinking like hot cocoa or something. He said, you know, I'm going to be the best dad, and we're going to do stuff like fishing. And, you know, it was like a nice sentimental like moment between the him and, you know, John Ritter just really trying to prove to him that he's, you know, his goal is to be a good dad to him. And it was nice. And obviously that other scene that everybody remembers is when he's John Ritter's like had it, and Junior's gone and his wife's gone, and he's going through those pictures, and then he sees the one that Junior drew of him, and it was like a nice picture. And that was
when he finds the prune in the drawer.
Yeah,
that got me. That scene got me. I swear my eyes watered up. I swear to God.
And he said it. So it's like it shows Junior does have a heart, right? It's just you know, how people treat him is kind of how he, you know, he acts out. So there is a lot of, like you said, it's deeper than it may come across watching it as a kid.
I think that works both ways, though. It works when you watch it as a kid, and it works when you watch it as an adult. Because, like, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but when I watched Drop Dead Fred for the first time as an adult, it did not work for me anymore. I loved that movie as a kid. I could relate to that little girl and like all the things, and I just loved it for that. But now that I watch it as an adult, I'm like, no, this doesn't work anymore. But this movie works both ways.
That's a great point. Very good point. I mean, you're absolutely right. I think it does. And I think Justin also made a real good point earlier where I kind of miss this in movies. And I feel like they did a real good job of this in the 80s and 90s is like you said, there was never a wasted scene. There was never anything in this movie where you're kind of like, all right, let's get to the next thing. There's
no filler.
There was always something going on. There was something. It didn't matter if it was with the bow tie killer or whoever, but every scene like had a purpose, and there was some kind of action or one liner or something in there that just continued to flow the movie. And I think that's rare nowadays.
You know what this movie reminded me of is like a kid's version of like a Zucker Brothers film, like Airplane or Naked Gun or something like that, where every second is kind of clever. So and there's also a lot of great camera work. Like it's just shot so well. Like there's a lot of crane movements. So the movie it doesn't feel cheap. You feel like you're watching a real movie. But I think like as much as the kid's good, I think John Ritter is really like the star of the show here, man. R.I.P. John Ritter.
There was like a slew of people they asked before him. There was like Steve Martin, John Travolta, Chevy Chase, Kurt Russell, Richard Dreyfuss, Dan Aykroyd. They asked like all of those people first, and they all turned it down.
They all turned it down. Damn.
For one reason or another. Didn't necessarily have anything to do with the script or anything like that. They were just working on other things, like, you know, Ghostbusters and all of that stuff. So that's how John Ritter actually landed it. But now after watching it, I can't imagine him not being the dad in that movie.
Right.
I know.
Right.
Can you imagine if John Travolta was the dad?
No, I was like just thinking of the people that you talked about, and I feel like you know, John Ritter's one of those guys, like he just feels so genuine of a guy. Like he really does. And I don't know if he's ever played anything but that, but you know, I think he also kind of did a good job when he was starting to lose his mind a little bit. Like I think he was able to take it to that level. And I was just thinking to the people you talked about, like who could have kind of worked both angles. I think Steve Martin could have probably pulled both angles of like the sweet side and then, you know, going to like a little bit berserk. But
I feel like
just think at
Chevy
the same
Chase
time-
would have been the closest for me. I feel like he
I could see
probably
Richard
could have
Dreyfuss,
done
too.
it.
Yeah, Chevy Chase.
Yeah. There's some of those good ones. But you know, talking about fun facts and stuff is that this movie was almost, you know, I was doing a little bit of research as well, and when this came to the table, they almost wanted to make this a horror movie based on a true story about a family who adopted a kid that ended up like killing their pets and you know,
like an Omen kind of.
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is funny
and-
because Justin, didn't you mention something?
Yeah, like we need to talk about Kevin or
Damien.
Omen or something like that.
Mhm.
Damn, that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so this was originally supposed to be like a horror movie, almost like kind of an Omen where Junior was like really doing real bad stuff and the family was like freaking out. And they ended up switching it around. And I think it was because of it was based on a true story and they didn't really know if it was smart to, if it was like almost like a too soon type thing, because that I guess that story had just been pretty recent. So they switched it off to almost like a black comedy, but they almost wanted to spoof a lot of the movies that were coming out around that time, like the family movie. So it was a family movie, but almost like kind of spoofing that. Like they used Parenthood as an example. And if you notice, the movie poster is basically the Parenthood movie poster, except instead of Steve Martin holding his two kids, it's Junior holding his parents, right? So they spoofed that whole thing to almost like that's kind of the angle they were taking. It was just like, hey, it's a comedy, but we're kind of spoofing all these like family-friendly, lovey-dovey comedies.
Which is kind of funny because this role was kind of meant for Macaulay Culkin.
Yeah.
Yes.
Instead of Michael Oliver, but Macaulay Culkin went on to do The Good Son instead, which is actually kind of similar to this movie, but in a horror way.
Now, speaking of that, you're right. It's almost the same thing in that more of a horror element. But what's funny is I did hear that as well, as Macaulay Culkin was up for this role and he was pretty close into getting it. But imagine that, because like we said, Home Alone came out a little bit later afterwards in that same year, which is a very similar vibe. It's a kid and his family, like, you know, he's doing traps. He was Junior. I think it would have been super weird if it was the same kid. Don't you? Like, especially being a kid at that time, it would have felt so much like a sequel or something back then. It would.
I don't think it would have happened. Like it would have been one or the other. I think Macaulay Culkin just wouldn't. We wouldn't have the Home Alone as we know it.
Yeah, it would have been somebody else.
Yeah, and also the Bowtie Killer, the casting. Did you see who was supposed to play him? But I guess he couldn't do it.
Yeah,
because he was
I
working
didn't
on Back
see
to the
that.
Future
Who
3.
was
Christopher
it?
Lloyd.
No way.
Yeah, but he couldn't do it because he was doing Back to the Future 3.
Oh
but
my
then he
God.
went on to play kind of a similar character in Dennis the Menace.
Yes.
You know,
That's
like
hilarious.
the escaped convict. So it ended up going to Michael Richards. Who,
Michael Richards did such a good job, though.
he is amazing in this movie.
Look, a giraffe! Look, a fist!
There's nobody in this movie, like all the casting in my opinion ended up the way it should. There's nobody that half-asses their performance. Like everybody gives their all. And Michael Richards really, really goes for it, man. He goes for it, man. He's
very believable in his role.
Oh
yeah. Especially being a Seinfeld fan, you look at him and it's always the lovey-dovey Kramer, but he can turn it, right? Like he was a pretty scary like character in that movie. Like, you know, and I thought it was really, really well done. They had a great supporting cast. Like, I mean, even Gilbert Gottfried was in this movie as a supporting cast and he did a great job as well. He's always playing the same character, but it just works so well in this.
It does work really well. I don't like him though, but
speaking of like some of the, so I want to get into how like not a kids movie this is, because we were just talking about Michael Richards, and I don't want to get graphic here or anything, but there's kind of a disturbing scene with him when he first goes into the house, and you're like, is he gonna sexually assault this woman in the kitchen? Like, what?
Well, he kind of does for a second, but then she's like, 12 years? Oh,
yeah, she was down for it. I'm like, what is going on in this movie? But as he follows her in, and this is when John Ritter's kind of doing his whole thing, he's like staring at her, and I'm like, this should not be in a kids movie. Like, this is a really messed up scene. Of course,
well, and then you hear all the stuff that's happening in the kitchen, and John Ritter's just sitting there, and I'm like, does he know what's happening in there?
Yeah. There's so many moments like that. There's also a scene with the grandpa, like just talking about all the off-color stuff in this movie, where the grandpa or John Ritter's dad comes in and he's talking about the adoption process, and he's like, "So did you just go in a tube, or did you get to knock a live one?" And all this stuff, and I'm like, "What, dude? What is he talking about?"
Listen, tell me something. You make out with a cup, or you get to bump a real live one?
You can't say that in a kids movie.
Well, all jokes aside, though, like all the stuff the kid did, like if that happened in real life, those people would probably be dead.
Oh yeah, lights a fire in the clown room with the retarded clowns, or as Junior calls them.
Oh my God, they're retarded.
Yeah,
You have
it's
to bleep that.
I don't know. Are you allowed to say that anymore?
I don't know. See how real the Radpack is. That's what he says in the movie. That was one of the shocking moments.
The rad
insert
clowns.
clip here. Yeah, the rad clowns.
Do you want to redo it? You can say those rad clowns.
I'll just do a voiceover where it says, "Oh my God, they're rad."
Yeah.
Oh my God, I love that.
Dub it over.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That
there's
is
so
funny.
many jokes. You first of all, like, they just don't work today, as far as just like, things that aren't appropriate to say, like in today's culture, and also just the movie in and of itself just being far more edgy than a PG movie would be these days.
That's right. Big Bands is 100% American. I'm selling the store to the Japs.
That's one of the things that kind of bummed me out after watching this, though, because I was like, that was such a good movie. I had such a good time watching it. But throughout the whole movie, I just kept picking out the things that probably wouldn't be okay today. And I'm like, but why? Why can't that be okay today? That sucks.
He calls Gilbert Gruffy, "You stupid dick." When he does that little impression of him, that was great, man.
That was like the best part.
Yeah.
Maybe if I talk like this and move my arms, people will know what I'm talking about.
Maybe if I shrug my shoulders and move around my hands like this, maybe people will think I know what I'm talking about.
Hilarious. Now, did that kid? I'm not familiar with anything else that kid did outside.
He didn't do anything. He left Hollywood right after, and I'm wondering why.
Wow.
I think you watch him in this, and I thought he did a hell of a job. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, like as a kid, I'm like, oh, we're gonna see him in more kids' movies. To be in a movie that made that much money as the main star of that movie, more or less, to not really go on and do much after that is you're wondering if it was on his and his family's, idea to like, let's leave Hollywood, or he didn't get cast anywhere else. It's surprising
It was Hollywood,
that
and he was a kid. What do you think happened?
he just wanted out. What do you like?
Oh, was there some
He
shady
got
shit
that
happen?
Corey treatment is probably what happened.
I mean, who knows? Maybe
That's what was happening to all the kids back then. I don't want to take this to a dark place, but
I always wonder
that's
that
what I
too.
assume.
Yeah, you got to wonder about that, because every time I look at, like, I'll be watching a movie and I'll look up an IMDb, like an IMDb profile, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what else they did, and you'll see that they just stopped. And you got to wonder, especially in the case of Problem Child, like this kid was like actively going to auditions. He was obviously like trying hard. It's not easy to get in a movie. So you try really hard.
I read that he was like a really chill kid who was like uber smart too.
Oh, that's interesting. I always wonder what happened. You make it, you go all the way to Hollywood, you get in a big movie that's super successful, and then the reasons that things like careers don't pan out, I find very fascinating. So he didn't do a single other movie after Problem Child 2?
I think he was in I think he was in a TV show, maybe as like a supporting character or something like that. But it also said he was in Forrest Gump, but wasn't credited as like a background character at some point. So I don't know, what happened. But like you said, this is his first basically role, right? So he goes in, gets the main role, never really, had other movies under his belt at that point, and then does a sequel, and then all of a sudden is just kind of gone. Like, it is very weird. And what's interesting is he's actually going to be at the convention that I go to usually every year, which I won't be going this year because it's in April and I'll be with you guys. He's going to be there. And
oh shit.
Dang.
Yeah. So I thought that was really cool. So I
Could've
told my
asked
friend
him.
Jay, to make sure he gets me something signed. And I'm not sure if I want to send him my posters or have him just get me something to the table, but I definitely want to get something signed from him, just because, again, I don't know I don't know where this guy's been. You know, I know he got out of Hollywood, but you don't know if this convention thing is something he's just starting or he's just going to try it. And so I was like, I might as well, get someone to get it for me.
I'm not even trying to be funny here, but I do wonder if it was because of his look, like just that bright red-haired, freckle-faced look, if he was just like only getting like bully roles. Like I feel like every kid that looked like him, especially as he got older, was like the red-haired kid in Christmas Story or something.
I was just going to bring up Christmas Story too.
Yeah.
That's a good point too.
Maybe.
That's good he's getting back in the conventions. He can make some money off of it. You know what I mean? So at least he can benefit off of it now for this huge nostalgia culture that's going now. So good for him.
And then we didn't talk about his wife, Amy. Is it Yazbek?
Mm-hmm.
They
a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, they met on this and got married, and they were married, until he passed away, and they met.
Oh,
on this,
no shit!
On this film. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She was his wife in the first one, and then his love interest in the second one too.
Do you know it took me like till I was an adult to realize that was the same woman?
Yeah, I've just realized it today.
Oh. So you're talking about the red-haired like wife?
Yeah.
What do you mean she's the wife in the first one and a love interest in the second?
She plays a different character in the second movie.
What?
But...
She's his girlfriend in the second one. She's the little girl's mother that he wants to date at the school nurse. That's the same.
How do you can't just do that? That's like
I know, but that's
you can because I've seen this movie a million times and I didn't realize that until today looking up.
Because she looks different. She has like dark hair in like a ponytail with glasses. I mean, it's so funny because it's like that she's all that or something. Like she had glasses, like so I couldn't tell the difference. Like
That's so bizarre. It's like they did in Return of the Living Dead 2, where you have the same actor play different characters. That's so weird.
She looks so much better in the second one too.
I think so too. Yeah, and
a year later too, they banged it out quick.
It was smart because
literally.
Because she doesn't seem like the same character at all. She doesn't like I said, I didn't realize that until I was an adult that was the same woman.
That's so interesting.
And I remember her from other movies. Was she in Robin Hood Men in Tights? Was that her that played like Maid Marian?
Oh, that was her.
Yeah.
With the chastity belt and everything on there?
Yeah.
Was that her?
Yeah,
that is
I think
her.
So.
Oh man.
Yeah, she's beautiful, man. She's a beautiful actress.
She's a pretty lady.
And they were married until he passed, and I think they had a kid or something like that. But
good for John Ritter, dude.
For sure.
Shooting above his league there.
And even when you said it was only a year later between the first and the second
90,
one?
and the second one came out in 91.
Wow. Because I even think John Ritter looked a little bit different in part two, and obviously Junior did.
Well, yeah, the kid
was a little bit older.
A lot older.
And even John Ritter kind of looked like he was like, he looked more in shape and stuff in part two or whatever. I don't know if it was just like they dolled him up because he was like a single guy now or whatever, but I thought he just looked like just better in the second one.
Yeah.
Well, that was like the whole shtick of the second one was that like he moved to this town that had a bunch of, desperate housewives.
Yeah, and like other things in this movie that when he does like a lot of the voiceovers and stuff, like some of the words he's saying bitch and all this other stuff, and I was thinking as I was watching it, like how funny is it like have that little kid like in the sound thing just like swearing and stuff
I bet
like
he
that.
had a blast. I bet he had a blast making that.
Probably.
The voiceover was a really unique that really set the movie apart. It was a cool aspect of the movie to have the voiceover.
It was nice that they continued it on through the whole movie too. It wasn't just like something they did in the beginning. They did it all throughout the movie.
Yeah, it's good to see his inner thoughts because like it just goes back to the writing of this movie. Like they really try to make you care a lot about the characters.
Well, there was like a lot of like little things that they did, Justin, like you were saying, where they put a lot of thought into this because there was just like some Easter eggs throughout the whole thing too. Because like one of the things is through the whole movie, you see John Ritter reading these self-help books, but what you don't know is like all the self-help books had the author's picture on the back, but that's actually John Ritter in different outfits.
Oh, no shit.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah. So that was like a little Easter egg in the first one. And then in the second one, they kind of repeat that same thing, except so when they go through the slew of husbands, the chick hat or whatever in the second one, they're all John Ritter in different outfits. So they kind of played that in both movies.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, it's those little touches that make it unique. I love stuff like that.
So they end up at the end of the first one, him and Junior are together and the wife Flo she's gone. And I used to think that was funny too as a kid when she like unzipped the thing at the end and like what was it? Was it a pig or something? Like balls were like in her face.
Oh yeah, she waits
takes
for
the
just
crap
full
on her.
screen, right on those balls. I was like, Jesus Christ.
As a kid though, I thought that was like the funniest thing. I used to like wait for that scene. I'd be like, that's the funniest thing ever.
Just having her in that suitcase and he's like throwing her around. I'm like, this is so gnarly, dude.
It's a wild movie. And then, we can really just kind of spawn off onto the sequel a little bit here because to me, it's like one long movie. It just really flows well. Like it's almost like this takes place, what is it, a year or so after the first one. And now it's all the same characters, which I think really help movies is when you have the same cast. I don't like when they recast people and stuff. Like this just felt really organic. And, like you said, they moved to a new town. He's single now. It's just him and Junior. And he moves to this town, like you said, of Desperate Housewives. And he's kind of going on dates and meeting people. And I think the second one to me is more fun. I mean, it's wild because I think they both are just really, really good movies.
This is like the best example of a perfect sequel. Like this is what sequels should be. They should look and feel the exact same as the first one, but like different story, and you know how they say go bigger and all of that stuff.
Right.
And this movie does that. It looks and feels just like the first one, but the story is different. They go bigger. To me, this one has more iconic moments in it. There's like so many moments in the second one when I was watching it that just like brought me back to my childhood more than the first one did. Like the roaches at dinner with the salad, and like the pizza in the restaurant where when they're peeling it off their face, it's like slime instead of actual pizza sauce, and like the dog eating that dog food and then having those amazing shits. It's like
God, I don't remember any of this. I need to watch this.
You need to watch the second one. The second one to me is like where it's at. And
I love the team up
little
with
girl
him and the girl.
in the second one is so freaking cute.
Yeah,
she's adorable.
And that's another one. What's her story? Did she go on to do anything? I don't know who that is.
I don't know.
Off the top of my head, I can look and see, but she was very iconic look. I feel like I remember her from just being a little kid, and she does really, really well. And like you said, what they did, and this is another like little fun fact, is that the movie did really well in the theaters. Part one did really well. The critics hated it, but the kids loved it, like you said. And that's kind of what happened. So the directors and the writers have said, well, you know what? Like, I don't care what the critics say. They hated this. We're going to make part two, like you said, bigger and badder, more crazy stuff. Like basically, like you said, it was part one, but turned up like another like 10 notches. And that's exactly what it is. Like there's more swears in the new one, even with the little girl, she's flipping the bird and stuff like that. This girl looks like she's probably like 6 or 7 years old, chucking the bird in school, throwing dynamite. Like there was just a lot going on there. And that you did get that like kind of dark comedy with like some horror elements in it. Like, that the makeup of the woman who like rang the doorbell and it zapped her and she looked like a zombified, remember that woman?
Oh my, yeah, when he electrocuted her.
But like her look afterwards, like her hair's like way up. She looks like a zombie. She had stuffed her bra and like the Kleenex was like blowing up.
She walks away and then just falls over. Like, did she die? Like what?
Well, yeah. So Mel, did you find out if the little girl from part two was in anything else, or did she kind of vanish from Hollywood as well?
So that's the interesting thing is she was in an episode. Well, she was in Bill Nye the Science Guy from 1993 to 98. I don't know if that was just like some episodes here and there or what, but after that, nothing. However, if you look at a picture of her now, she is very pretty.
Really?
Interesting.
Yeah, she gorgy.
Wow.
Not an actor though?
Nope.
Not doing.
No.
Interesting.
Wow.
Just Bill Nye the Science Guy, and that was it.
I mean, that's the thing. I would actually, would be the best thing if I was to ever meet him or her, to get part two signed, like that movie poster, because they're both sitting on the thing and getting their. That'd be so killer if they ever did something together. So, Justin, it's been a while since you've seen part two, right? So you don't remember?
It's been since I was a kid. I haven't seen that movie in. I can't even. I don't remember anything about it, to be honest. But there was some things that I realized that must have been from the second one that I was kind of like blending with the first one. So watching the first one, it had been so long since I've seen it, but it was almost like watching it for the first time again. But I feel like there are some gags, even someone like the cockroach thing that you mentioned, a couple of the other situations that I thought were in this movie, but they must be from the second one. There's just a little bit of spillover.
Yeah, there was some great characters in this. Like you had Gilbert Godfrey again, like as the school principal or whatever, and then you have the kid. There's like the bully. There's a bully in this one, like this big kid that was in 6th grade for like, but he looks like he's like 18.
What's 3 plus 2?
9.
Yeah, he's still in 6th grade. And he's like beating up all the 6th graders or whatever. And then you have the little girl Trixie and stuff. And the one scene that I always remember, but at the same time, I feel like they did this in another movie back in that day, was the carnival scene where they were all vomiting everywhere. Like,
that was another one.
Killer. Like it was like that Exorcist vomit, like everywhere. But they very similar to like Sandlot. Remember they did a very similar, type of scene in Sandlot. It must have just been a thing back then where it's like, let's go on spinny rides and have everybody vomit everywhere.
Gotta gross people out, man.
That was the only time I was like, is this still going? Oh my god.
Because they carry it. Like they all puke on the thing and then everybody sees them puke, then they get puke on them and then they puke. It's like, it was a pretty cool like little gag that they did with this. And I just think it just is that gives a lot of charm to this one as well. And yeah, man, I think you definitely need to check this one out again because it just fits and flows so perfect with the original. It's like it could just be one big movie. And it kind of has that same, like you said, vibe where like there's never a dull moment type of thing.
Yeah, fuck it. I'm gonna order the Blu-ray. You guys sold me.
Order me one too.
I'll get you one too.
But so I mean, I give it this a rad. I highly recommend the whole part 1 and 2. I know you said there was a third one. I've never seen it. And then I remember there was a cartoon, right?
Oh, I don't know anything about the cartoon. I looked up the third one a little bit.
What's up with the third one?
It was during that time where everything got a cartoon. Back to the Future, Teen Wolf, Mask, Beetlejuice. Like they all had Tales from the Crypt. There was so many like of those like movie cartoons from movies back in that early 90s. Yeah. But yeah, so again, I totally think that this is something that you guys should definitely check out, and definitely let us know too, like if it's something you haven't seen or you're just seeing it for the first time now that this new Blu-ray is out. So Mel, obviously too, it seems like we're all kind of in unison with enjoying this one.
Yeah, I loved it. I love both of them. They're great movies. It was so much fun revisiting them and just like going down that nostalgia road. I'm actually curious to know, for people who don't have the nostalgia behind these movies, what they think about them watching them now.
Right.
To that point, I was kind of thinking about this. Watching it as an adult, even though it is a kid's movie, because it is so like off color with the humor, it almost works as like an adult movie too. You know what I mean? I know we talked about the dynamic of like, parents and kids, but it also just works as a movie that I didn't feel like I was watching like a movie for little tiny babies. Like I was like, this is a real movie.
It's not for babies, but
I know, but like,
this is not a movie for tiny babies.
Like if you try to go back and watch like something like, I don't know, like The Land Before Time that we watched when we were a kid, like that's a movie like 100% for kids. Like I can see even adults watching this for the first time and still getting a lot out of it and still having a good time with it.
I 100% agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's just some really fun stuff. One fun scene was like a set piece of the movie that I thought was great was the bear scene when they're camping.
Oh my god.
Let's see if he's ticklish. Mr. Bear ticklish? Coochie coochie.
God,
like that was a great gag, dude. How they did the little bait and switch with the friend, so he thinks it's the real bear, and he's just beating the shit out of him, and just like, yeah. And everybody's screaming in the car.
Did they even do that now? Like make a joke of like him hitting a real bear with like a pan? Like,
see, I don't know.
And be like sharing with it. Like, everybody, get him again.
The way he was like, guys, there's nothing to be worried about here. And he's like buddying up with the bear. I'm like, this is a genuinely funny moment. So yeah, I mean, I highly recommend this movie. Even if you've never seen it, don't look at it as just like revisiting a kid's movie. It's just a good comedy. It's just a fun comedy.
Yeah, and a couple of other things I just remembered on part 2. Number 1 is the scene when Junior records the babysitter and the boyfriend.
Oh
up in the
oh
thing.
my god.
It's so funny because you're watching them and you're like, what are they even doing exactly? They're like upside down, like on the headboard of the bed.
They're wrestling on the bed. Wasn't he wearing like tiger stripe underwear too?
It was such a weird scene because I'm like, what are they doing exactly? And everybody else, I was like, oh, look at him. He keeps going. I'm like, going what? What is he doing?
See, back in the day, I think the writers and the filmmakers knew that, like, I'm going to throw some things in here that it won't necessarily be inappropriate for a kid because they won't even know like what's going on. You know what I mean? But
I think it was
the
just
adults,
overheads.
yeah, but the adults do. So I think I wish they did more of that these days. But yeah,
you know what else is
that's
super
hilarious.
rad, and I think you'd appreciate that John Ritter's house in part 2 is like Justin's house. Like how cool was
I got
his house? You ever
FOMO
had
from this
like
damn part 2 because I can't remember any of this stuff. I want to watch it.
so it's like such a
rent
bachelor's
it
house
on
that has like
Vudu.
arcade machines in the house and stuff. I'm like,
Oh
this
shit!
house
Fuck
is
yeah!
so sick. It was awesome. Yeah, he had a killer setup, and then
Hell yeah!
even Junior had a really killer room and stuff like that too in the part 2.
Hell
like the
yeah!
spaceships and stuff. Yeah, it was definitely cool. But yeah, totally recommend checking these out. And obviously, if you don't have it, Mill Creek just released that Blu-ray with the sweet VHS cover. I recommend you guys picking that one up. But guys, anything else you want to say about Problem Child before we sign off here?
Watch it. High
Yeah.
recommendation. High recommendation. Yeah, a lot of times there's movies that you rewatch like this and you're like, that was pretty good, but this one was like, it holds up and it's worth every. It's only an
doesn't, but
hour
it
and 20
does.
minutes. Right. Exactly. Yeah, by standards. Yeah. But it also moves really quick. It's only an hour and 20 minutes, so it's like perfect length for a movie like this.
Mhm.
Yeah, check it out.
Yeah, so guys, keep your eyes peeled because and ears peeled because this will be on YouTube and also on the podcast in the audio format. You can kind of go to anywhere podcasts are found to get it. You got Spotify and Apple, and if you guys leave us a review on iTunes, we're going to do a live show in person from Justin's house. I think April 15th we'll be there, and we got some cool giveaways for everybody we'll do a raffle based on how many people do it, but we're going to have some giveaways for people who do a written review on iTunes about the podcast. I think you guys are going to really like what we have to offer. And also keep your eyes peeled and ears peeled this month. We've got our next YouTube live episode on April 1st. That's April Fool's Day. We're talking about the Garbage Pail Kids.
Oh yeah.
That's
going to be a fun. Yeah, that's going to be a fun rewatch for that.
Gonna get slimy in here.
Yeah, we got some bangers. We got some bangers coming up. Garbage Pail Kids, and we actually just kind of picked the next solo movie that I know you guys are not going to want to miss. For people listening and watching, we got another banger movie, a classic movie that we're going to be breaking down too. So I can't wait for that one too. We'll hold off on mentioning that for now. But
well, I already blew it today because I posted it.
Yeah, you posted on your Instagram.
So if you're not following us on Instagram,
you can follow us on Instagram at Born to Be Rad.
There you go. Follow the socials if you want to know our secret next movie. We'll just keep it a secret for now. Go follow Garrett on the socials and Mel and myself. Guys? Yeah.
Okay, so you can follow me on YouTube and on Instagram at Born to Be Rad. Mel is over there on Instagram and YouTube as well at My Killer Podcast, and then you can follow Justin on Instagram and YouTube at Movie Watch Daily and on YouTube as The Dead Couch.
That's right.
And we are the Radpack. And like always, stay rad.
Stay weird.
Stay killer.